Good evening. Let's call to order the regular county board meeting, Thursday, June 22nd, 2017. The time is 6:35. Roll call, please.
McGuire. Here. Michaels. Here. Mitchell. Here. Patterson. Here. Petrie.
Present.
Rector. Rosales. Summers.
Here.
Tinsley.
Present.
Alex. Anderson.
Here.
Clemens.
Here.
Cowart. Cruz. Esri.
Here.
Goss.
Here.
Harper.
Here.
Hartke.
Here.
King.
Here.
Marsh.
Here.
Weibel.
Here. We have a quorum. I do not have a prayer because I locked the keys in my car this afternoon, and that was exactly the time period I had allotted to select a prayer. So anybody want to volunteer from the board? Okay, we'll just skip that and go to the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the clerk read the notice of the meeting, please?
Notice is hereby given that a regular meeting of the County Board, Champaign County, Illinois, will convene on June 22nd, 2017 at 6:30 p.m. in the Lyle Shields Meeting Room, Perkins Administrative Center, 1776 East Washington Street, Urbana, Illinois, in said county for the purpose of allowing and ordering payments of claims against the county, receiving and acting upon reports of committees and such other matters as may be brought before said meeting, which said meeting shall continue in session from day to day until the completion of said business.
Thank you. Seek approval of the agenda and the addenda. Moved by Mr. Anderson, second by Mr. Esri. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Hartke, would you offer the next motion, please?
Yes, Mr. Weibel. I would move adoption of resolution number 10,005, appointing Stephanie Furtado as a county board member in District 8 to fill Matt Heiser's unexpired term ending 11/30 of 2018.
Ms. McGuire, I'm going to ask you to second that since you're good friends. Would you second that?
Yes, I'd like to second the nomination of my good friend Stephanie. Thank you.
All right, very good. Discussion. See none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Holton, please.
You can stay there if you'd like. It's easier for you to stay on camera that way. I'm going to read a statement. At the end of it, you can say, I do swear or I do affirm. Do you, Stephanie Furtado, having been appointed to the office of County Board in District 8 in the state of Illinois in the county of Champaign aforesaid, do solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and that you will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of County Board Member in District 8 to the best of your ability?
I do affirm.
Congratulations.
Very good. Date and time of our next regular meetings, county facilities, Tuesday, July 5. ELOC has been canceled. Actually, I can say all of the July committee meetings have been canceled except for facilities, which will be on July 5th at 6:30. Then the next regular county board meeting will be on July 20th at 6:30 in this room. Public participation. Dorothy Vera Weiss, you're up first, and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, and thank you to all of you again for your service on this board and service to the community and community members in Champaign County. I'm again speaking about the county nursing home. I know that it is going through difficult times and has been for a while. I also know that the voters of Champaign County committed their hopes and their money to the nursing home a number of years ago in terms of supporting the referendum for the bond for the new construction there. I think that it's very important to honor that and to honor the fact that it is a public benefit to the citizens and residents of Champaign County and other surrounding counties who also come here. I know also that there has been a group appointed to take over the operation of the nursing home, and I'm very hopeful that they'll be able to make some positive changes in it. I hope that the good that is being done there can be amplified through the work of this group. I'd like to point out and make sure that everybody's aware that there are ongoing discussions with the healthcare organizations in the area. I believe that it would be very beneficial to both Carl and Presence hospitals to continue the linkages that they have with the Champaign County Nursing Home as a reliable place where they have staff coming over to confirm that there is continuity of care and to look after the care that's provided to the patients that they transfer there. I believe that it is very worthwhile for the nursing home to stay a county facility if at all possible, with county involvement if it's not just a county facility. And I hope that no changes will be made in the ownership of it until those discussions can continue to see if there is a way for better collaboration between the two, because I believe that that will be a benefit to the county as a whole. And I say these things from my experience working in healthcare organizations as a family physician for a number of years and seeing the benefits of having that kind of collaboration there. So I hope you will all keep this in mind as you consider the specific plans for moving forward with the nursing home. Thank you very much.
Next is Ms. Lisa Dixon.
Thank you all very much. This is my first county board meeting, although I have watched you on television. I wanted to say a few things also in regards to the Champaign County Nursing Home. I have been a lifelong resident of Champaign-Urbana, and it seems to me that right now our community is at a crossroads regarding this facility, so I have some questions, i.e., what are our priorities as a community? Roads, buildings, taxes, et cetera, but also dignity of human life, and where does that fall in the spectrum of what is important? Do we as a community seek to care for others and to prioritize people over money? As a lifelong resident, I pay taxes, of course, and I've very proudly paid taxes for schools. I proudly pay taxes for the nursing home as well, knowing that I may also someday be a resident there. I also know that even if I am not, nor never will be a resident, I know there are people who need it, people who do not have a lot of money and are on Medicaid, and I think if we can in any way find some sort of more amenable agreement, whether it is or is without the moving of the selling of the facility, that I've very, very strongly asked the board to find a way to work with whomever purchases or manages the facility to help make sure that those who are on Medicaid will be cared for. I have had family members who have been and are currently on Medicaid, and we need a facility for those folks. And I think if this facility gets sold and is no longer able to take Medicaid patients, then I think we lose an incredibly valuable resource in our county. I hope that you can see your way to make the health and welfare of the fellow residents of paramount importance. I know that you do already, but I'm hoping that we as community members can think of some really creative ways to make sure that we look after those who are the least among us. Thank you very much.
Ms. Claudia Lenhoff.
Good evening. My name is Claudia Lenhoff, and I'm the Executive Director of the Champaign County Healthcare Consumers. And I mostly wanted to just speak to an item that's on your consent agenda, and I'm aware that it's on the consent agenda. I just wanted to say that it was a privilege for me to serve on the committee that helped review the proposals for the management companies for the Champaign County Nursing Home. I was able to serve on that committee with Chris Alex, Jack Anderson, Al Nudo, and Rick Snyder, and they were very diligent in their work, and it was really my privilege to be on that committee, and it resulted in a unanimous recommendation of SAK, which I know is on your consent agenda. I am concerned about the county currently embarking on 2 contracts at the same time regarding the Champaign County Nursing Home. And I understand the reason for the timing, but because you absolutely have to have a management contract. I sort of wish that there would be a little bit longer delay in the brokerage contract, maybe even just 2 to 3 months. I'm curious to see what SAK will see with the nursing home and what hope they might have or what possibilities might emerge with their management and their evaluation, and what they might have to say about the future prospects for the Champaign County Nursing Home. Later, if it does look like a sale is necessary, I certainly hope that you will work to engage the community and the public to develop some criteria for the sale in order to protect the community's interests. And healthcare consumers would welcome the opportunity to help provide input on those parameters, whether they are about transparency, county residents' access to nursing home services, the ability to keep the adult day center, jobs, quality of care, and so on. But I think the reason that I'm concerned about these 2 trajectories is because I understand that from the brokerage firms, their estimate for finding a buyer is 6 to 9 months. What happens if at 4 or 5 months, SAK has a vision for the future that doesn't require the nursing home to separate from the county, but things are moving forward with the brokerage firm towards a sale to a for-profit company? But I do trust that if that is the case, that there would be serious deliberations about that and that the public could be involved. I know this is very difficult work, and I appreciate how difficult it is for everybody involved, and I wanted to thank you.
Mr. Scott Tapley.
Hello, as you said, I'm Scott Tapley, used to be on the board, served with a few of you all. I've been involved in the nursing home referendums and half a dozen other referendums in the past. There's a lot of well-meaning supporters of the Champaign County Nursing Home out there. I think I could probably count every single person in this room and probably just about every single person in Champaign County, quite frankly. I have yet to meet anybody who is anti-Champaign County Nursing Home. Everybody wants to see it succeed, continue to operate, continue to stay in business. Has anybody here met anybody who wants to go out of business? I haven't. What's unfortunate is that a certain portion of the well-meaning supporters that are out there are being whipped into an emotional frenzy over information that is just quite frankly false. A lot of it is the information about the financial status of the nursing home. I attended a event the other day put on by the Champaign County Healthcare Consumers, and Mr. Patterson was there, and Mr. Hartke was there, and Kathy Emanuel, who's on the board of directors for the nursing home, was there. And they're continuing to repeat things that just aren't true about how the home would be perfectly fine financially if the state just paid their bills, and that it's not really losing as much money as Mr. Snyder and Mr. Welch and Mr. Farney have all said that it is losing. And so it makes you wonder, what's going on? Do these people not understand financial statements? I mean, I suppose that's possible. The only other possibility is that they're deliberately misinforming the public, and quite frankly, that's even worse. Denying reality and hoping things get better isn't a very good business strategy. I don't think it'll work for the Champaign County Nursing Home. And maybe just a quick response to a couple of comments that were made earlier. I too believe we should support the referendum results, and I think the most relevant one is the most recent one. And I think we should continue down the path that you guys are going. I applaud you. You know, the question was brought up a minute ago about whether or not you should wait on the contract for the broker. Quite frankly, I applaud you guys for pursuing everything simultaneously. That's the smartest thing to do, because you don't have any time to wait to see if something magically turns around on its own. And the answer to the question that Claudia asked, what do you do if you get 5 months down the road of finding a buyer and things do magically turn around and everything's fine and you decide you don't need to sell it? I think the answer to that question is obvious. You don't sell it, right? But that doesn't mean that you should waste 4 months of time sitting here hoping that it gets better. So I applaud you all for continuing to move down multiple paths at once. That's the smart business thing to do. And I guess that's really all I have to say, is that I just urge you all to continue to treat this like a crisis, like it is, and not bury your head in the sand and sit around and hope and think, well, maybe the problems will go away all by themselves. So thanks for your time.
Mr. Stuart Levy?
Hi, Stuart Levy, 1108 Foley in Champaign. First, I'd like to congratulate Stephanie for being on the board. I had no idea until this evening that you were such a thing was even possible, but I'm glad you're there. So good luck, and good luck to everybody. I wanted to say something about the nursing home for the record. So I guess it has to be a question as that you'll be considering in the months to come of the economic viability of the nursing home. And in looking at that, you know, people have been talking about subsidies that the county has been giving to the nursing home, and those are important to count. But it's also important to count a significant subsidy that the nursing home has been giving to the county that I think, in all fairness, the county really should have shouldered and should be counting as its own burden, not the nursing home's burden, and that is the mold remediation from a decade ago. It's a couple $1 million. That's a lot of money. I couldn't pay a couple $1 million, but when you consider whether this problem with the county construction project should be shouldered by the county, or whether it should be shouldered by effectively by the operations of the nursing home over the time since then. That's a real question. And if you answered it, so what I'm told, what I've heard a couple of times at these meetings, is that, well, at the time, the manager of the nursing home said that they could cover it. So you could see that as the county board, I think, has taken it as, well, they owe it. But I think instead you should be considering it as this is something that out of their generosity and out of the money, out of the income they had, they offered to carry it. But they shouldn't have had to. So again, when you're thinking of, you know, would the nursing home be a going concern? I think you should be doing the accounting in a different way than you're doing it, and you might get a different answer than the one that you've been getting so far, where speaker after speaker in recent meetings have been saying it's a hopeless case. It'll never be economically viable. It'd be a rather different thing if $2 million were shifted back onto the county's burden. It's a real burden for the county, but it's an unfair burden for the nursing home. Thank you.
Is there any other public participation? Seeing none, we'll close that. Move on to consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Mr. Esri, second by Mr. McGuire. Is there anybody want to remove anything from the consent? Ms. Petrie?
I'm not moving anything, but I do have an information question for Mr. Snyder, if I might.
Is it on an item on the consent
Yeah.
agenda?
Yes.
Then you should ask to remove it.
Oh, I won't do that.
The whole idea to have consent agenda is not to have discussion. All right. Roll call, please.
McGuire? Michaels? Mitchell? Patterson? Petrie?
Yes.
Summers?
Yes.
Tinsley?
Yes.
Anderson? Clemens? Cowart? Cruz? Esri?
Yes.
Furtado? Goss?
Yes.
Harper?
Yes.
Hartke? King? Marsh?
Yes.
Weibel?
Motion carries. Next up, communications from the board. Are there any communications? Mr. McGuire?
Okay, I've been thinking about this all day, and this will be our last meeting before the end of June. And there's been a lot of discussion about the state budget, which is one of the issues that is going to have an impact on our budget if there is not a state budget. And it doesn't matter whether Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, whatever, the state budget is going to impact us, whether you have the U of I, social services, K-12, any of those issues. And everybody says this, and I think it's somewhat true, that Rauner or Madigan will, they're not going to change it. And I want to say that, and for some of us like Shana know, that when representatives get phone calls, it makes a difference. And they have to make the decisions, whether it's senators or representatives. And we need to put pressure on them. It can make a difference. They are making decisions about how it's impacting their local districts across the state. And they aren't that far apart if they can make some decisions. And they know it's putting a lot of pressure on us, including IDOT. So the public, please make phone calls. Try to make a difference. It can, especially when it's someone they're not used to getting calls from, like people like me. Not that I won't make the phone calls, but when it's John Q. Public, it does make a difference. Please call. Thank you.
Anything else? Mr. King?
Is it possible for me to note the upcoming Jetty Roads, Martin Luther King Jetty Roads Neighborhood Day event that takes place Saturday, June 24th from 12 to 4 p.m. at King Park in Urbana, Illinois. It's free to everyone in the county, so it should be a great time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I just have one announcement. All of you should have gotten an email from Susan Monte on this last Tuesday about a pesticide collection event. I just want to, you didn't? Oh, well then I'll forward it to you. I just want to point out though, it's for commercial, large-scale agriculture. It's not for people who have a garden in their, small garden in their backyard. If you have a large garden, take it up with Miss Monte. But I thought she was going to forward it to, I will forward it to you then. It's pre-registration is due before July 12th. So this is the pre-registration. It's going to be in the fall sometime. All right, actually after it's by July 14th. You have to pre-register. I will forward that to you then. And you should spread the word to people who have very large gardens or commercial operations. Okay, I seek approval of a pile of minutes from March 23rd, April 20th, and May 18th. Moved by Mr. Mitchell, second by Mr. Hartke. Discussion on any of these minutes. Mr. Esri.
Very minor, but on page 55 of our packet, page 6 of the April 20th, under new business, you go down to where it starts out, Board Member Mitchell. It just says Board Member Mitchell to allow items. I believe it should say something like Board Member Mitchell moved to allow items or recommended to allow items, something like that.
That is correct. It
It's
should be.
very minor.
Should
but
move to allow.
I did look through them, so.
Is there any objection to making that change? Seeing none, would the recorder please do that? Okay, any other discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Next, we want to stand committees. There's nothing for facilities, ELUC, or highway and transportation. All were on the consent agenda. Let's move to finance. Ms. Michaels.
I can speak loud. Adoption of resolution number 10006, authorizing payment of claims.
Second by Mr. Hartke. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Next, adoption of resolution number 10007, authorizing purchases not following purchasing policy.
Second by Mr. Esri. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Third, adoption of resolution number 10008, authorizing award of contract to Marcus and Millchap pursuant to RFI 2017-004 for property brokerage and consulting services for the sale or transfer of the Champaign County Nursing Home.
Second by Mr. Goss. Discussion. Mr. Schneider has some statements to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to give you a few notes on the agreement. The agreement was reviewed by the state's attorney's office. There were a number of changes that I had proposed and they had proposed, and Marcus and Millchap accepted all of those terms. They also removed a clause that required a payment of a commission if the home becomes unmarketable for some reason. So basically, that removal means that if the county board ultimately chooses not to sell the home, there will be no commission due to Marcus and Millchap whatsoever. So there's no risk on our end on that. In the draft contract, there's a few items that have a TBD listed. The reason for that is at the recommendation of State's Attorney's Office that the term of the contract should not start until we complete our due diligence. There's going to be a couple months at least of work that has to happen before we can actually proceed to any kind of marketing or solicitation. So it's going to take some time to work through that process. Also, in paragraph 1, it specifically calls out so that all terms and conditions of any transaction shall be agreed to and reduced to writing and will be attached to the agreement as an appendix. So all those items that are marked TBD will be filled in before anything is actually agreed to. Paragraph 4 incorporates the statutory requirement that any transaction is conditioned upon approval of a 2/3 majority of the Champaign County Board. The property transaction, as recommended by SAO, is that it will be made on an as-is basis. We've also incorporated the submittal in its entirety of the request for information that we received from Marcus and Millchap as another exhibit to this document. I did not include it in here to save a few trees, but that all of that information is included. Also, the last paragraph 10, it says there that the absolute discretion on entering into any transaction agreement remains with the Champaign County Board. So we have a couple of places there where there's protections put in for this. With that, I'll be happy to answer any other questions.
Mr. Snyder, could you please explain again the business about the TBA points and not being valid until those are filled in? I mean, I'm not sure if we're voting on tonight, it doesn't become valid tonight, or I'm somewhat confused.
So voting on the contract allows us to secure the broker and then move forward on the due diligence work. I think that all the risk is being borne by the broker at this point, so whatever costs may be involved in developing maps and other documentation, that's on them, where there's no obligation on Champaign County to move forward with anything. We can decide at some point to pull out of this. The reason is, if you look at some of them, like for example, the offer price, we don't have a valuation at this point, so we need to do the background work to develop comparables or appropriate numbers for that. So that's why it's still TBD. Again, though, those things can be, I mean, we can review those before we agree to those. So, but we need to get the contract going so we can keep the broker working.
So to clarify, we would review those items at a county board meeting, is what you're saying?
We can do that, yes.
Discussion by the board members. Mr. Hartke.
I would just ask for a roll call.
Anybody else? Mr. Anderson.
I'll just reiterate, I'll try to be brief. What I understand of this, and certainly I heard tonight, the way this, I just can't believe how fortunate this county is in this regard, that we have the opportunity to engage a broker, not knowing the outcome of the nursing home with the new management, but it allows us to terminate their services at no cost to us. And it allows us to, the agreement allows us to put in conditions if we desire them. If they don't want to add those, then we could always go to, never mind. So I don't see how we lose on this by moving forward simultaneously with the new management and with the brokerage firm. And then we can make the decision when they conclude their work, and if we get people who actually want to buy it, and we can look at that and make that decision then based upon what's happening at the nursing home. But in light of what's happening currently, I think we do need to move forward with this. Thank you.
Ms. Petrie?
Yeah, yes, a clarification exactly at what points can the county board step away from this without any financial commitment on the part of the board?
Anytime before we actually approve a sale of the home. So there's nothing happens, there's no obligation on the county unless the board votes with a 2/3 majority to approve a sale transaction or transfer or some other disposition of the home.
And based on the new information you've given us, it will take somewhere in the range of 2 months for them to do some due diligence before they would actively start marketing the home. Do I understand correctly?
Yes, there's title and legal compliance requirements, developing the legal description of the property. There's a number of things that have to happen.
Okay. So our gain, from what I understand your explanation to us, is that in a parallel track, because we approved the consent agenda, we have a new management firm for the nursing home. We don't know how that will turn out, but in a parallel track, then we will also be obtaining information to find out through due diligence about the home through a broker. There may be nobody out there who wants to buy it. We have no idea unless we test the waters. And even, I did ask the question of both presenters, and they gave us a window of time of roughly 6 to 9 months for this process. I don't know if this is still that window of time with this 2 months of due diligence. But it appears to me that this is almost a fail-safe way for us as county board members to get even more information to help us make this extremely difficult decision moving on, and giving us some information to have conversations and more conversations with our constituents. I've had conversations with constituents, and the theme is what I heard earlier this evening, that the nursing home is very important to people, but it's getting to the point of financial pressure. So we need to find out just how bad that financial pressure is, or if we can turn the corner on this financial pressure, and we can't do that unless we gather more and more information.
Further discussion. I would point out we've only had one person say we want a voice vote. Is there another? Thank you, Mr. Summers. We will have a roll call, and Ms. Cord also. Further discussion, Mr. King?
Mr. Snyder, as far as you can tell, what metrics would you be using, I guess, to sort of measure any impact that an RFI, pursuant of an RFI, might, I guess, levy against the occupancy of the home? Are there specific things you'll be looking at to sort of see the impact of the RFI if it was issued? I think I'm just trying to see that if this happens, how will you measure if just the very notion of putting an RFI out there will impact occupancy, cause it to drop, and then if it drops, what happens? Do you have the ability within our contract to say put a halt to it, or does that have to come back to the board for a vote?
I think any decision relative to the contract would be a board decision. I think as far as census, anything I tell you would be speculative. I think in a certain sense, some of the fall off is baked in because, as you know, in the months preceding the referendum and following the referendum, there was a significant drop off of a census. That number has stabilized, though, in the last month, month and a half. So we've been staying right around 140. So I think that we've seen it level off. I don't anticipate seeing it change. And who knows? I mean, the speculation also might be that with the new management company, we may see people willing to come into the home. And that's been the single problem we've had. We haven't lost a lot of people. It's just that we haven't had as many admissions as we would normally have.
Is that it, Mr. King? Okay, Mr. McGuire.
I see the dual track as our most favorable opportunity. I mean, I think SAK is important because of the recent issues in the paper. We hope to improve what is happening at the nursing home. But the situation is that if we don't follow through with the broker, the nursing home is on a track that it could become broke. If something doesn't happen, we're going to further erode the county's budget also. If we hold off on the broker and wait, then we're that many more months behind, and we don't have the money to fix the issue. They've got to run in parallel. And as everybody said, we don't have to do one. We have to have the 15 votes to sell. And I think we're in a great position because we have SAK to improve what's happening at the nursing home. And if, we can make those decisions, but we have to have the information to make better decisions that the broker might bring to us. We're just in a right position at the right time. If we don't have both tracks working, I don't know how we make the right decision. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Mr. Patterson.
I have to say I'm usually used to getting a packet almost a week in advance, being able to, review it and look it over. And it's my understanding that we're all looking at this contract for the first time as of a matter of 45 minutes now. And I don't know if I feel comfortable really even voting on something like that. And I'd also like to have, it's good that we had legal counsel advise this, but I'd also wish that we could also, have somebody here who is an attorney to ask questions to about, different aspects of it. And but the incomplete language of the TBDs and stuff like that, I feel like this is kind of half-baked. And if I'm wrong, I'd like to, be able to at least ask an attorney whether or not I am. So, I definitely don't feel comfortable with this.
Ms. Furtado.
My concern with, I do actually have a concern with going down 2 tracks simultaneously. I don't see how we could be thinking we're giving SAK an opportunity to succeed or fail if we, at the same time, are positing a sale, no matter if we just say it's for information. I mean, it's going to be read as a potential sale, and I don't see how that cannot possibly have a negative impact on retention of quality staff, keeping up the census numbers, and for entering the kind of long-term partnerships that Dottie is talking about. I don't see how people like Carl and Presence are going to come to the table if sort of that the future is so uncertain, and uncertain to the point that we're literally doing 2 different strategies at the same time. I don't think the idea that 2 tracks are neutral, I think that is inaccurate. I think going down 2 tracks simultaneously without giving the new management even a day to see what they can do. And to Kyle's point, Mr. Patterson's point, without even having a chance to actually review the contract is actually pretty concerning to me.
Mr. Goss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would say that I would agree with Mr. Patterson in one respect. I think we ought to put tonight's date, if we approve this, into that agreement from TBD. Put tonight's date in it. I don't feel comfortable dragging this on another 6 months beyond the time we see it for 2 months of due diligence, and they're going to run out of money. And in the meantime, they're bankrupting the county. And they're going to take away from essential services. We're going to try to put together a budget, and we're going to slash the budget to try to keep this moving forward. I hope SAK, I honestly hope SAK pulls off some kind of miracle. It still doesn't come up and get us out of $3 million of bills. I mean, if they break even, that's, in my opinion, that's a miracle. But it's still not going to pay off $3 million of bills. And I just, I'm going to vote for the agreement, but I think we ought to put tonight's date in it if it passes and get it moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McGuire.
Well, I agree with Mr. Goss, except that it's likely to be $5 million worth of bills. Doesn't include capital projects. Doesn't include that they're not paying taxes for the employees. And right now, we have already loaned them $250,000, and tonight, I think they're taking $30,000 to $50,000 of that money. And so within a month or so, they're going to be tapping that $250,000 and expecting more money. So we need to move. We can't be waiting for someone to check the contract. We actually have had someone check the contract. We need to move forward and get things done, both for the people that live in the nursing home, the staff that work at the nursing home, and our staff that work at this county who deserve, for us to try to protect as much as the budget and their jobs.
Ms. Petrie.
Oh, a couple clarification questions to Mr. Snyder based on what our new member expressed as concerns. When you had your conversations, and I only know the person's name is Susie, I don't know her last name, from SAK, when that contract was negotiated, was it part of the conversation with that company that there would be this parallel track with the approval of the county board of an RFI and a broker working at the same time, so that the SAK company is realizing that this will be happening, but their role is to continue to work on stabilizing that nursing home and potentially turning it around?
They are aware of the board's interest in pursuing a broker. I think they would love to have as much time as possible to, help stabilize the home. I don't want to put any words in their mouth, but I think that would be the intent.
Then, was part of your conversation, did they give you a rough window of time of, in their experience, which is rather extensive, that it takes to actually begin seeing the signs of turnaround?
The turnarounds, it's hard to get an exact time frame. They thought it might take a year to do it. I think they've identified some potential savings in the existing contracts. We've been doing our due diligence on the nursing home contracts and dietary and also on therapy and some of the other major ones, and they think that there's some opportunities for savings, but they're not really going to know anything until they actually get boots on the ground and have reviewed all of the contracts. Next week, we plan to have our first meeting with their entire staff here, and they'll be meeting with the nursing home folks as well.
Mr. Harper.
I feel like we've got to keep our options open. I know our past colleague, Mr. Maxwell, and Mr. Alex, who's not here, have always expressed about keeping our options open. And if we push this back to see what SAK can do, great. If they can turn it, but if they can't turn it, we're just that farther down the hole. We're already asking all the department heads to shave what they can off their budgets. And we got the perfect out. It doesn't cost us a thing if they can turn it around. Walk away from it. This is just give us an option. If things don't happen in 6 to 9 months, you already said it's going to take them 2 months before they ever go out to even solicit anything. Why push it back? We just gave them $250,000. They just took $50,000 of that. We know we got a 3-month pay period coming up in September. If SAK can turn it around, so be it. But if we sit here and tie our hands right now, we're just pushing ourselves that much farther in debt. To me, we got the perfect out when we got no obligation to Marcus Millchap if things turn around. Thank you.
Mr. Mitchell.
I appreciate talking about different accounting methods. And I think that if we could use a different accounting method, things might look different. So I'm all for that. However, the treasurer has addressed this group numerous times, and each time he brings the real numbers to the table. So if we look at who's in charge, the new management company, the nursing home administrator, and the county administrator, when they go to sign for services or goods to be delivered to the nursing home, fully knowing that they're not going to be able to pay the bill, that's in a form of stealing. I think we need to really look at that if we're going to enter contracts with regard to servicers, meaning people that are providing food, providing care, or providing merchandise, and we cannot pay them, then we are stealing from the public. So I think that's something that we need to look at, because the accounting methods and the message that the treasurer has brought to this board is that it's a negative cash flow, that it's getting deeper, and there isn't any other way, unless a miracle happens. And and I was troubled too, because he was using, the income was static, and we know that the population has gone down, so the income isn't actually static. So we're using real numbers that aren't working out or washing out by the end of the month. So I feel that we need to do something, because I just don't feel comfortable in stealing from the people in the county.
Further discussion? Oh, Mr. Studger.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. I apologize that the contract wasn't available until today. There was a very short turnaround time, so we negotiated both this and the SAK contract simultaneously, and had to go back and forth a few times. But The other thing I wanted to point out is the state's attorney's office specifically recommended against changing the start of the term until we actually get all of our legal compliance requirements done. So it's certainly the board's decision if they want to change that, but I would say that the state's attorney recommends against that.
Ms. Michaels.
I just want to sit here and say that it's very important that we try to do what's best for the residents. And I think if we don't look at all of our options, as the majority of voters have told us to look at all of our options, then we are not doing a service to our constituents. Or in some cases, maybe your area wasn't for it, but the overall vote was, let's look at some options. As far as the contract, I'm all with you. I've been there and said, golly gee, this just came to us. But how many other contracts have we talked about so many times, or at least had the opportunity to ask about, and things that we have had our legal look at, the state's attorney or whatnot, look at that, and we've proceeded with them because we understand that. I don't think any broker that I've ever heard of says no fee. I mean, that to me is a bit of a no-brainer at some point, that we don't really have a lot of skin in the game. And once again, it still takes 15 to do something. I think it's really bad that we don't even explore an option. That means that we're just closing our minds to some possibilities that may or may not be there. It also may give SAK incentive to say, hey, look, maybe this is a good deal and maybe we can work on this and make this go. We certainly want that census up, whether they keep running it and we keep them or somebody else, or if it is possible that there is a profit or non-for-profit organization, foundation, whatever, run it, then it's in their best interest to get it up. So I don't see them taking it down the path. I think it's a disservice if we don't look at all of our options.
Mr. Esri.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to publicly thank Mr. Snyder and his staff for their work on both the SAK and this other contract with Marcus Millichap. Whether or not we pass it tonight, just thank you for your work and all the hours you put in on it and diligence and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
McGuire? Yes. Michaels? Yes. Mitchell? Yes. Patterson?
No.
Petrie?
Yes.
Summers?
No.
Pardon? No. Tinsley?
No.
That was a no for Summers.
Right, I gotcha. Anderson?
Yes.
Clemens?
Yes.
Coert?
No.
Cruz? Esri?
Yes.
Furtado? No. Goss?
Yes.
Harper?
Yes.
Hartke?
No.
King?
No.
Marsh?
Yes.
Weibel?
No. I lost count, so would the recorder please announce the
11-8. Yes.
motion carries? Ms. Michaels, number 4.
Adoption of resolution number 10009, approving the fiscal year 2018 salary administration plan for non-bargaining employees.
Second by Mr. Esri. Discussion. Ms. Coert.
Reading this here is the salary increase 1%, and it's up to the discretion of the department head whether or not they get the other 1% through merit.
That's correct, Ms. Coert. This is the way we did it in FY16, and so basically what that allows is that if they feel there's no need to distribute data by merit, then they can simply give 1% additional to all employees. If there's other employees that they feel that have performed in a manner such that they deserve additional compensation, they can decide to give that employee more and then less to other employees. But that's at the department head discretion.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Michaels. Why don't you go do, under new business, item B?
If I have a B1 and a B2, sir,
Oh, that's right. there's
on
a-
the addendum. Would you
right.
like for me to wait or go ahead?
Why don't you go ahead if there's no objection? We
Okay.
don't need to suspend the rules for that because finance can go. can get your-
On to new business, Finance B, adoption of resolution number 10011, authorizing budget amendment number 17-00028, Fund Department 105 capital asset replacement to 140 Correctional Center, an increase in appropriations of $35,890. And there is no increase in revenue, and the reason is to re-encumber the funds for purchase of a corrections van that was not received before December 31 of 2016.
Second by Mr. Anderson. Discussion. I have one quick question. Is this van going to be purchased this year? Or has the van arrived?
In
Do they still plan to buy the van?
Yes, this was already taken care of. I guess what I understand happened is there was some error in the ordering process, so the van actually arrived here after the first of the year. So we're just simply, and this was budgeted.
Hey, we need 15 votes on this, so let's see no further discussion. Roll call, please.
McGuire? Michaels?
Yes.
Mitchell? Yes. Patterson? Yes. Petrie? Summers?
Yes.
Tinsley?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Clemens?
Yes.
Coert?
Yes.
Cruz? Esri?
Yes.
Furtado? Goss?
Yes.
Harper?
Yes.
Hartke? King? Marsh?
Yes.
Weibel?
Yes, motion carries.
And then on your addendum, under new business, Finance B2, adoption resolution number 10028, authorizing budget amendment number 17-00029, Fund Department 104, which is early childhood, to 839 preschool for all expansions even. The increased appropriations of $250,000 and increased revenue of $250,000. And the reason is the receipt of the Illinois State Board of Education funding to enhance services to 107 children and their families. This is a preschool for all expansion funding.
Second.
Seeing none, roll call.
McGuire? Michaels?
Yes.
Mitchell?
Yes.
Patterson?
Yes.
Petrie?
Yes.
Summers?
Yes.
Tinsley?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Clemens?
Yes.
Coert?
Yes.
Cruz? Esri?
Yes.
Furtado?
Yes.
Goss?
Yes.
Harper?
Yes.
Hartke?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Marsh?
Yes.
Weibel?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Michaels. Let's go back to the top of new business. First, I'd like a motion to suspend the rule that all items have to go through committee. Finance does not have to do that, so motion by Ms. Michaels, suspend the rules. Or a second? Second by Mr. McGuire. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We do have one item from county facilities. Mr. Hartke.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move adoption of resolution number 10010, approving the lease agreement between the County of Champaign and Ilias for their, the facility rentals that they rent from us.
Second by Mr. Harper. Mr. Schneider, could you give us a briefing on this, please?
Be happy to, Mr. Chairman. As you know, Ilias has been a good tenant of ours. They have been leasing space in the old nursing home annex since around 2008. We recently renegotiated the lease. We had to make some adjustments in the amount of space that is included due to continuing deterioration in the historic section of the nursing home. The condition with mold has made that area not safe for continued use, so that area has been subtracted from the lease. And so that's going to result in a decrease in the amount of revenue received, so total square footage is going down. The impact will be about $100,000 a year. I think that should cover it.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next up, we have policy, personnel, and appointments. These did not go through the committee, so I have to vacate the chair so I could do these. Is there any objection to having Mr. Hartke chair this part of the meeting? Seeing none, Mr. Hartke.
Yes, moving on to policy personnel appointments, I would open the floor to a motion from Mr. Weibel.
May I do all the Cemetery Association appointments at one time, if there's no objection?
No objection.
I'll point out that all of these appointments for the Cemetery Associations are from July 1, 2017 to June 30th, 2023. So therefore, I move adoption of resolution number 10012, appointing Rachel Schroeder to the Bailey Memorial Cemetery Association. I move adoption of resolution number 10013, appointing David Payne to the Craw Cemetery Association. Adoption of resolution number 10014, appointing Michael Rosenberger to the Craw Cemetery Association. Move adoption of resolution number 10015, appointing Rod Maddock to the Mount Olive Cemetery Association. And resolution number 10016, appointing James Prather to the Mount Olive Cemetery Association. Adoption of resolution number 10017, appointing Lawrence Kinsler to the Prairie View Cemetery Association. And adoption of resolution number 10018, appointing Roger Corey to the Yearsley Cemetery Association. And number 10019, appointing Joseph Marriott to the Yearsley Cemetery Association. And finally, adoption of resolution number 10020, appointing John Yearsley to the Yearsley Cemetery Association. And I shall move.
Thank you, Mr. Weibel. Do we have a second? Seconded by Mr. Marsh. Any comments or questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Those will pass. Mr. Weibel, you have another motion.
I move adoption of resolution number 10021, appointing Scott Hayes to the Forest Preserve District Board, term from July 1, 2017 to June 30th, 2022.
May I have a second? Seconded over here. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. We have one no, but that still passes. We'll move on. Mr. Weibel.
I move adoption of resolution number 10022, appointing John Peterson to the County Board of Health, and resolution number 10023, appointing Kyle Fleming to the County Board of Health, both terms from July 1, 2017 to June 30th, 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Weibel. Do we have a second?
Ms. Petrie, right next to you. Oh.
Are you seconding, Ms. Petrie?
Yes.
Seconded by Ms. Petrie. Any comments or questions? Ms. Petrie.
Yes. I would like these two separated so the vote is on each individual resolution.
I guess we can go ahead and allow that without objection. So therefore, the resolution right now is simply for resolution number 10022 for Mr. John Peterson. Any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of Mr. Peterson, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That resolution passes. We will move on then to what would be then resolution number 10023. Any questions or comments on that resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
That resolution passes. We will move on. Mr. Weibel.
For the, I move adoption of resolution number 10024, appointing Deborah Roosh to the Developmental Disabilities Board, term from July 1, 2017 to June 30th, 2020.
May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Petrie. Any questions on this? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that resolution passes as well. Mr. Weibel, number 9.
I move adoption of resolution number 10025, appointing the members to the Racial Justice Task Force, term from August 1, 2017 to October 31st, 2017. That term I don't think is correct.
No, it's only supposed to be for 6 months or 3 months.
Yeah, and also it should be from,
The 1st of August through the end of October, correct?
I think it should be the 1st of July.
1st of July.
And it's for 3 months.
Right.
Without objection, we can just amend that.
That'd be from July 1st to 30th of September, correct.
I'm making sure they're ready. Do we have a second on that then? Second. Ms. Coward, I'll call on that. Any questions? Aaron?
Yes, thank you. Just looking at the resolution, it says, whereas we have the resolution number 9521, January 1st, it said a term beginning February 1st, 2016 and ending July 31st, 2017.
Yeah, so the 1st of August would be when it.
So the 1st of
started.
August,
It's-
it appears would be correct.
Okay.
But yet, if it's supposed to be a 3-year term, will be 8, 9, and 10, so that'd be 3 months.
Okay, well,
So it appears maybe the 8 one is correct,
okay, let's,
based on,
I know it's a 3-month extension, so I guess that would make sense.
So for the record, we will
July 1st.
make sure that that reflects from August 1st through October 31st, a 3-month appointment. All right. Having been properly seconded, any other comments or questions? Mr. Anderson?
Just a question of protocol. Is it appropriate for us to identify these members by name or just reference them?
I would agree, Mr. S. I will read those names into the record,
Thank you.
but I'm only going to do the last names. Rahim, Bulgonian, Branham, Bindum, D, Felty, Harbor, Hughes, James, Lerner, Pat, Randolph, Ross, Turner, Silver, and Walter.
Any other comments or questions on this? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? That motion will carry. Mr. Weibel, number 10.
Move adoption resolution number 10026, appointing Catherine Woodcock, and adoption of resolution number 10027, appointing Carol Bradford to the Community Action Board. Both are terms from June 1, 2017 to May 31st, 2020. Sorry, they're from, yeah, June 1, May 20, that's correct.
May I have a second? Lorraine has seconded. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that resolution will carry. And with that, I believe I hand the gavel back to Mr. Weibel.
Thank you, Mr. Hartke. I'd like to establish the County Administrative Evaluation Committee to review our county administrator right next to me. And therefore, I'd like to appoint Mr. Weibel, Mr. McGuire, Mr. Harper, Mr. Petrie, and Mr. Summers to this committee. Is there a second by Mr. Goss? Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Finally, item B is changes for the county board, county executive form of government. This is for discussion only, starting on page 100 to 112. Just briefly, it's we start out with a memo from the state's attorney's office. I think most of this work was done by Ms. Donna Davis. She does suggest we put together a committee at some time to work on this. I agree with that, but I think I want everybody to have some exposure to this initially before we go to that point. We particularly need the committee to work on the new rules. The first part after that is basically just a list from the Illinois County Codes and the Constitution, anything that has to do with the Chief Executive Officer. Despite the fact it says draft on the page, those items are taken verbatim right from the statutes. Following that, starting on page 72, is a list of a abridged list of powers and duties of the county executive. That was done by Ms. Davis. However, all the stuff in brackets was done by me. I added that to it. Like, for example, number 3 says issue executive orders. This is new. I don't have the power to do that right now. But on the other hand, I don't know what it means for the county executive to issue executive orders because, first of all, it would not cover everybody because it would not cover the other elected officers. Would it cover their staffs? I'm not really sure. So I'm not sure what that means. So anyway, I've got a number of those in there. And these, of course, will lead to much discussion, and it's also will create questions we can send back to the state's attorney. In addition, later this month, Ms. Davis and I, and perhaps Ms. Mann, are going to go on a field trip to Will County to talk to their county executive, their speaker, and to their state's attorney's rep who works with the county board or any county executive to ask them questions about that. Ms. Petrie.
Several thoughts. That's nice that you all be making the trip up there, but what's the possibility of us having the opportunity, say in a study session, to have them Skype in and that we can hear what they have to say as a full board? So as we have these conversations, it can be robust. And can I also request that we all be given their packet that they have developed under this form of government? So
You mean their county rules?
Yeah.
I can send that out to you.
Okay, because that would be
yeah.
very helpful in our conversations, and then doesn't mean we're going to follow them,
Right,
but it
right.
gives us a starting point.
I will do that. I also point out that they do video some of their meetings, but not all of them. They do the main county board meeting and the executive meeting. They do not do the committee meetings. And I've reviewed some of them. So that's another way of observing about how they do it.
So may I have a follow-up?
Go ahead, please.
Could we gain anything in the way of information from anybody at UCCI with what Will County has done and how they have moved forward?
I can look into that. I don't know the answer, but I can look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Patterson, yes.
First one to point out, I just noticed there's 2 number 3s on your list that you made.
To number what? Well, that'd be my style of numbering.
But it says draft, so it's okay. Is Will County the only county that has it?
I'm sorry?
Is Will County the only county that has the
Correct.
executive? Okay.
That's correct. Ms. Petrie.
Just to add to your information, McHenry County did have, and they got rid of it, so it would be also very interesting. Rock Island, oh, thanks. Rock Island. So it'd be interesting to find out how that occurred.
I will try. That might be a little bit harder, but I will try. Newspaper accounts might be the best way of finding that out. Granted, that was some time ago, I guess, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, and they did it within 2 years,
Yeah.
which interests me how that happened.
I will look into that. Okay, any further discussion? I think we're, any other business? Oh, sorry, we have a couple, I'm sorry, we have a couple things, other things under other business. Item C, Mr. Snyder requested we have a study session in July in the nursing home. Mr. Snyder, would you state why we want to have that?
And included a little information on this in your briefing packets. I think July would be a good time to give the board an opportunity to meet with our new management company. They'll have had about a month on the ground at the nursing home, and so they'll be gathering information. So I wanted to have that opportunity for the board to pose questions and ask about specific functions of the home or other questions they may have related to improving the operation. And I just think it's a good time to also review finances. We know that we may need additional funding going into the fall, so I think it'd be good to get a status update on that. Perhaps the treasurer could join us and give us some information.
What'd you say, Mr. Patterson?
I just wanted to ask another question about executive, but you kind of ignored me.
Okay.
Just
no,
do we have a?
Let's go back. Let's go back to it. Okay.
Can we go back to that?
Yeah, let's go back to it.
Okay.
Not yet.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Any objection to have the study session? It's already on the calendar. All right. So expect an announcement on that. What's the date for that? Do you know?
I think it was July 25th.
July 25th, probably. Okay. Let's go back to Mr. Patterson. I'm sorry I cut you off.
Sorry, it's okay. Do we want to discuss, or do you have in mind a timeline on when we are going to make the final decision on the details of the executive? And what is our next step at this point, I guess?
Well, the next step is to we're going to go up to Will County. There really is no timeline, except it has to be done by the end of this term for the rules. So we really have like more than a year to get all the rules figured out.
So you're saying like next December or
Yes.
next November?
Well, yeah, next, end of November next year. It'd be nice to have it done a little bit earlier perhaps, so we don't get rushed. Except for the salary. Salary has to be done, it would have to be done earlier. And we'll be working on that earlier too. Okay, any other questions on that? All right, let's move on to item D. Could I have a motion for this to get it on the floor first? Moved by Ms. Peter. The motion would be to approve the reinstatement of the county membership in the NACO. Is there a second? Ms. Cowart. Mr. McGuire. We've been offered a deal from the Illinois Association of Counties. They will pay for half of our costs to become members of NACO again. Zero the first year, $2,000 next year, then roughly $2,000 next year, then roughly $4,000 the third year. We do not have to continue after that, basically, so it's half price for the next 3 years. I think it's a good deal. I talked to the executive director of NACO last week at a meeting in Bloomington, and he says that because there are so many new people in Washington, that the impact of what the either Congress or the president's going to do is going to have more impact on the counties than ever before. He compared it to like during the Obama years, we were dealing with ping pong size problem or projects. Now we're dealing with like basketball size. And this is from a person who I consider to be a very conservative person too, is my impression of him. But he's serious that because these people are new, they're doing things that there's a domino effect that will affect counties more than ever. So I think this is a good time to get back on board. Plus, it's a good deal. It's half price. Now, it's here under the business and not under finance because we're not spending any money this year. That's why I have it here. So I'd like to entertain discussion on that. Ms. Petrie.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions on our moving forward on this. We've been out of NACO. Actually, it happened after the 3 people went to the national conference about 3 years ago. And my concern is I could never figure out quite what Champaign County was getting from the membership in NACO. So in moving forward on this, and if it gets approved, I would like to see how we can figure out how NACO, this annual conference in NACO is in Ohio. That's a 6-hour drive. There should be people from this county board going and attending NACO. It is worthwhile, but if we aren't going to the national conference and getting involved in those aspects, we aren't gaining anything back from our membership at NACO. And it's $6,000 to do this. Do we have $6,000 in addition so that we can facilitate several members of the county board taking advantage of a national conference or other professional development opportunities? This is not happening for county board members, and yet I think it's very important. And if we're going to put $6,000 in a membership to NACO, then we've got to figure out how members of this county board can be taking advantage of it.
I would concur. I'm seriously thinking about attending that conference at my own expense, since it is close. I put out that next year's conference is in Nashville, which also is a little bit further. I think actually a nicer spot. But it's like 6 hours driving time, so it's close by also. And of course, we could put some money into the budget for next year for that. We can't. I don't think we can do anything about this year, but I'm willing.
I'm suggesting this year, but
correct.
If we're going to join, then in our conversation of joining, I'd like to hear how we're going to take advantage of
Well,
this.
we need to send some people to the conference, national conference, I think.
Didn't we also include with that offer for either 2 admissions to NACO National or 2 to Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, I think they did make an offer of, well, it's certainly reduced registration. It might have been free, I'm not sure. I'll check into that, though.
I think it might have been free.
We still have the hotel room and things like that. There's a possibility we get reduced registration or free registration this year only, though? Was it every year?
Not every year, I
Yeah, I think it's just this year.
Oh, because one of the ways that I was able to get three of us to Charlotte, North Carolina, was that we negotiated a lower amount for the registration. Registration is extremely high for that conference.
It is. You have a comment?
Just a quick one. One of the benefits I think we would have in joining NACO is that they're very influential in the area of behavioral health services and influencer of granting organizations. I think that some of the things that we've already been able to do because NACO knows that it's important for Champaign County to be involved. And it's also been mentioned that our executive director of our mental health board is currently the vice chair of behavioral health subcommittee at the National Association of County Behavioral Health and Developmental Disability organizations. It's important for us to be a member of NACO going forward. So another reason to continue.
Further discussion. Mr. McGuire.
Just to add to that, we're constantly sending grants requests out and receiving some of those funds. So while it may be $2,000 now, it might end up getting us 50 or 60 or 100,000 later.
Very good. Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Is there any, Ms. Go ahead.
Okay, now I get a chance to ask my question of Mr. Snyder on the SAK contract, which I couldn't because it was on the consent agenda. During our discussion of that contract, I do not remember if you gave us any idea of what the per month costs might be for the county for the contract, and the way I read the contract, that will increase if SAK is successful in increasing the number of people in the home. So did you run any numbers on that?
I apologize if I hadn't brought that forward. As I recall, the management fee was 5.25% of net resident revenue, and that using our
Net,
current.
isn't it?
Pardon me?
It's on net, isn't it?
Yes, I said net. I thought I said net. So using our current number from the treasurer's cash flow projection of 940,000, that's exclusive of IGT or other things, that yields a number of about 49,350 per month. So it's more than what we're paying MPA right now. However, of the proposals we received, it's kind of in the middle of the pack. So we had a much higher number that was considered. There was a smaller number, but not much smaller. So.
Okay, thanks.
Is there any other business? We're adjourned.